I never thought I'd end up in a relationship that felt more like a prison sentence than a partnership. My name's Daniel. I'm 29, and I work as a trauma nurse in a city hospital. 60 hours a week, sometimes more. Blood, broken bones, screaming patients. I handle all of it. But somehow, coming home to Maya drained me even more than those night shifts ever could. Maya used to be full of potential. She had dreams once, enrolled in college, talked about working in pediatrics or even becoming a writer. But all of that vanished about 2 years ago. She dropped out quietly, told me she needed a break. That break turned into a permanent vacation. She said she was too pretty to work, once, half joking, while lounging in bed with greasy takeout containers scattered around her. At first, I gave her space. Maybe she was just struggling. I knew what burnout looked like, and I wanted to believe it was temporary. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into years. She stopped trying. Hygiene became optional. She could go days without brushing her teeth. I'd come home to the same sight every evening. Maya buried under blankets, surrounded by styrofoam boxes, rewatching the same shows while I dragged my aching body through the door. I don't think she noticed the way my face changed over time, how my smiles became thinner, how my voice grew colder. I started coming home later, sometimes choosing to stay for an extra hour just to avoid the apartment. I was slowly disappearing inside my own life, worn down not by my job, but by the weight of two people's inertia. One night pushed me over the edge. I had worked a double shift, 18 hours straight, and when I walked in at 6 p.m., I found her exactly as I left her, bed unmade, wrappers on the floor, the smell of old noodles in the air. She hadn't even gotten up to take a shower. When I asked her what she did all day, she shrugged and said, "I was tired." That's when I snapped. I didn't yell at first. I just stood there, shaking, trying to hold it together. But the frustration, the hopelessness, it all boiled over. I raised my voice, telling her she couldn't live like this anymore, that I was done being the only one trying. That's when she did something I'll never forget. She grabbed a pair of scissors from the nightstand and held them up with trembling hands. "If you leave me," she said, eyes wide and voice shaky, "I'll do it. I swear to God, I'll do it." I froze. All the fight left my body in an instant. My training kicked in, calmed the situation, de-escalate. I gently took the scissors from her hands and told her I wasn't going anywhere. Not tonight. I sat beside her on the edge of the bed, numb. She cried. I held her, but inside, I had already started to drift far away from her. That night, while she slept soundly for the first time in days, I stared at the ceiling and made a silent vow to myself. I wouldn't fight her anymore. I wouldn't argue or beg for change. I'd just wait for the next time things spiraled. And when they did, I'd be ready to walk out quietly, with no more tears left to give. I didn't recognize myself anymore. I was surviving both in the trauma ward and in my own home. And I knew, deep down, one day, soon I'd have to choose which life to save. A week after the scissors incident, I finally found the strength to speak to Maya again. Not just react, but truly speak. The kind of conversation where nothing is sugar-coated. I waited until the apartment was quiet, no TV on in the background, no takeout bags rustling between us. Just the two of us, sitting across from each other at the dining table, a place we hadn't used in months. "I can't keep doing this," I told her calmly. "It's not just the mess or the money. It's watching you give up on yourself and dragging me down with you. I don't recognize either of us anymore." For a moment, I thought she was going to get defensive, maybe throw something or cry. But she didn't. Instead, she looked scared, then thoughtful. "I know," she said after a long silence. "You're right. I haven't been okay, but I want to try." It caught me off guard. She pulled out her phone and showed me a list in her notes app, places she planned to apply. A bookstore, a pet store, even a receptionist position at a small dental clinic nearby. She started talking about painting again, said she wanted to pick up the brushes she hadn't touched in over a year. She even mentioned something about enrolling in a free online course on interior design. It sounded good. Too good. I wanted to believe her. I did. But the truth was, something inside me had already snapped. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just gone, like someone had flipped the switch in my heart and dimmed it for good. "I hear you," I said slowly, "and I appreciate that you want to try. But I need you to know something. She looked up, her eyes searching my face. I'm emotionally out of this relationship. I've been trying to stay for both of us, but I can't fake love anymore. I care about you, Maya, but I'm not in love with you. Not like before. She froze. Then she begged me for time. Just 2 months, she whispered. Give me 2 months to prove I can turn things around. I didn't want to offer false hope, but I also didn't want to throw her into another breakdown. So I agreed with conditions. 1 month check-in, I said. If there's no progress by then, real, measurable progress, I can't keep pretending. She nodded, blinking away tears. And that night, instead of climbing into bed with her like I used to, I lay a blanket on the couch. The distance was symbolic, intentional. I needed to protect what little was left of my sanity. When I woke up at 3 a.m., I found her curled up on the floor next to the couch, like a shadow clinging to whatever light was left. A few days passed. Maya got dressed every morning. Not always great outfits, but it was more than pajamas. She went to a couple of places in person, asked for applications. She even sent in a few online. For a moment, it felt like she meant it. But something still didn't sit right. I didn't feel proud or excited. I just felt tired. Tired of being the one who always had a hope. One night, a couple of weeks in, she sat down beside the couch with her knees, pulled to her chest, and asked, "When did you stop loving me?" I didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, I said, "About a year ago." She inhaled sharply. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was still trying to love you. I thought it would come back. I thought if I just worked harder, if I had more patience, things would change. But all that happened was I lost pieces of myself." Her eyes welled up. "So, all this time, you were just pretending?" "No," I said softly. "I was hoping. That's different. I never lied to you. I just kept thinking you'd wake up one day and fight for us. But I always felt like I was the only one in the ring." She dropped her head and whispered, "I know. I've been so stuck. I wake up and feel like nothing matters. Like moving is too much. Like I'm underwater. I think I might be depressed." My heart ached for her, even as I sat a few inches away from her like a stranger. "Then let's get you help," I said gently. "There are therapists, support groups, even medication if it's something like ADHD or chronic depression. There are paths out of this." But she shook her head violently. "I'm not broken. I don't need meds. I just need to try harder." I didn't argue. I learned not to. That night, we slept in the same positions, I on the couch, she on the floor. She kept one hand resting on the blanket near mine, as if she needed physical proof that I was still there. And I was for now. But in my heart, I had already started counting down the days. The shift was almost immediate. One day I came home to the usual smell of reheated food and unwashed clothes, and the next, the apartment smelled like lemon-scented cleaner, and she was wearing jeans. Actual jeans. She greeted me at the door with a smile that felt too wide, too forced, and a camera slung around her neck. "I'm taking photography seriously now," she beamed. "Look, I've already posted 5 shots today on this new Instagram account. Maybe I can turn it into something." I blinked. "That's great," I said, unsure of how else to respond. She'd bought the camera with her old credit card, the one that I had quietly paid off last year. She also mentioned signing up for a couple of online photography courses and borrowing library books about color theory. There was energy in her now, a kind I hadn't seen in years. But it felt frantic, like she was trying to cram 3 years of lost time into a single week. She wanted to go on walks, practice street photography, shoot portraits, even learn editing software. I joined her on one of her early morning outings before my shift. The sky was still pink with dawn light, and she was crouched in an alley, trying to capture the texture of a brick wall. I watched her through half-lidded eyes, physically present but emotionally numb. I tried. I did. But nothing in me lit up the way it used to. I wasn't angry, just tired. Always tired. She seemed oblivious. The more indifferent I became, the more intense she got. She started packing me lunches with notes inside, texting me 3 or 4 times during my shifts. "How's your day? Thinking of you. Can't wait to see your face." If I didn't respond within an hour, I'd get another message. Or 2. Sometimes she'd send selfies with exaggerated pouts or hearts drawn on her cheeks. When I'd come home, she'd wrap her arms around me so tightly it felt like I was being held hostage. Her kisses lingered too long. She started calling me baby again, like we were newly in love. But it didn't feel sweet. It felt like pressure. At first, I told myself it was just her trying. This is what effort looks like, right? But the affection began to feel like something else entirely. A performance. A desperate attempt to glue everything back together with the most glittery thing she could find. Even my coworkers started to notice. You okay? Maggie, one of the ER nurses, asked me during a lull between trauma calls. You've looked exhausted for weeks. I'm fine. Just stuff at home. She gave me a look. I don't want to overstep, but this isn't the first time you've mentioned feeling trapped. That kind of overaffection, what you describe, it's sometimes called love bombing. I didn't say anything, but the words stuck with me all day. That weekend, I told Maya I was going out with a couple of friends after work. She pouted at first, then smiled too brightly. Okay, have fun. Just text me when you're there, and send a picture so I know you're safe, and maybe call me before bed. I nodded, but didn't mean it. I needed a break. Just one evening where I didn't have to worry about making anyone feel loved or reassured or stable. We went bowling, drank too much, and laughed a lot. I felt more like myself in those few hours than I had in months. For a little while, I forgot what it felt like to walk on emotional eggshells. But when I got home, the air was thick with tension. Maya was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV, but not watching it. She didn't look at me when I walked in. Hey, I said softly. No answer. You okay? Still nothing. I dropped my keys and slowly sat beside her. Maya. Finally, she spoke. You didn't call. Her voice was flat, distant. I explained that we got caught up in conversation, that I didn't want to disturb her late at night, that I just needed a few hours to breathe. She turned toward me, her eyes rimmed red. You said you'd try, but it feels like you've already given up. I sighed and ran a hand through my hair. I did try. I'm trying. But Maya, I'm overwhelmed. I feel like I'm suffocating. Every day is either me pretending things are okay or trying to comfort you so you don't break again. That's not a relationship. That's survival. Her face crumpled, but she didn't cry. Instead, she nodded once and stood up. Okay, she said. Then she walked into the bedroom and shut the door. That night, she didn't sleep on the floor beside the couch. She didn't text me the next morning. She barely spoke the whole weekend. I wanted to feel guilty, but mostly I just felt tired. The silence stretched on for days after that night. No good mornings, no packed lunches, no sticky notes with doodled hearts. The apartment felt heavier than ever, like all the air had been sucked out and replaced with tension. We moved around each other like ghosts, quiet, careful, distant. Then came the argument. It started over something small, laundry, I think. But everything else boiled beneath the surface, waiting for any excuse to erupt. One comment turned into another. Voices rose. Her eyes brimmed with tears before I could even finish my sentence. I can't do this, she screamed. You don't care anymore. You barely look at me. I stayed quiet, breathing slowly. Maya, I told you weeks ago, I'm here physically, but I haven't been emotionally present for a long time. Her hands trembled. Then why are you still here? Why didn't you leave me already if you're so done? Because I thought maybe something could still change. Maybe if you showed for yourself, I'd find something to hold on to. She collapsed to her knees, crying harder than I'd seen her in years. I don't know how to be without you, Daniel. I can't. I don't know who I am without this. I sat down in front of her and spoke softly but firmly. This isn't love anymore. It's dependency, and it's destroying us. She reached for me, but I held up a hand. This is my final boundary, Maya. 2 months. If things don't change, real change, we're done. Not because I want to punish you, but because I can't keep losing myself trying to save someone who won't meet me halfway. She nodded, tears still streaming down her cheeks. For once, she didn't beg. A few days later, she got a part-time job at a supermarket down the block. I didn't ask if she liked it. She didn't volunteer much either. We came and went like strangers renting the same space. A polite hi when we passed in the hallway, the occasional need anything from the store, but the walls between us were real now. And honestly, I thought maybe it was for the best. Then I got sick. It started as a sore throat, a bit of fever. I ignored it, typical nurse behavior. But by the end of the week, I could barely stand. My chest felt like it was full of glass, and I couldn't catch my breath. I ended up in urgent care, diagnosed with pneumonia, and forced on a medical leave. I didn't want Maya's help. I could barely look her in the eye anymore, and I didn't have the strength to handle emotional messes. But she stepped in anyway. She brought hot soup to the couch without asking, checked my temperature, ran to the pharmacy when I needed meds. She sat quietly by my side, reading old books or scrolling through her phone, never asking for anything in return. One night, I woke up coughing, my chest heaving. She was already there with a glass of water and her hand on my back. "You're okay," she whispered. "I'm here." I didn't push her away. I couldn't. The next few days blurred together, but the strangest thing happened. We started talking again. Not about us or the mess we'd become, but about the silly things we used to enjoy. Movies we loved in college. Old classmates. Dumb things we'd done before the world got so heavy. For a while, it felt easy. One afternoon, I laughed at something she said. Not a forced chuckle, but a real, tired laugh. She smiled so softly, like she didn't want to scare it away. We sat by the window with mugs of tea, watching the rain. She told me about a woman at the supermarket who wore leopard print leggings and told the cashier her cat was a reincarnated rock star. I told her about a patient I once treated who refused a blood transfusion unless it was from someone who listened to jazz. We laughed again, and something old and fragile stirred between us, something that once felt like friendship. That night, I lay in bed while she folded laundry nearby. There was no tension, no desperation, just two people sharing space like we used to when life was simple. I didn't know what any of it meant yet. I just knew that for the first time in months, it didn't feel like I was drowning. And maybe, just maybe, that was a start. The end came quietly at first. A calendar reminder blinked across my phone screen one morning. Lease ends in 12 days, and something inside me just clicked. No panic, no back and forth. I stared at that screen for a full minute before whispering to myself, "It's time." I didn't tell Maya right away. I wanted to wait for the right moment, when I could speak without resentment, without being baited into another spiral. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done, and that made all the difference. I brought it up a few nights later after dinner. We'd fallen into a strange rhythm lately. Quiet, semi-peaceful, almost like roommates who didn't talk much but didn't hate each other either. She was working her part-time shifts, I was slowly recovering from pneumonia, and we barely brushed against the topic of us. It was like we both knew this wasn't a forever thing. We just didn't want to be the first to say it. So I said it. "I'm not renewing the lease," I told her gently. "I found a place, month to month, near the hospital. I'll be out by the end of next week." At first, she didn't say anything. She just blinked, slowly, like I had spoken in a language she hadn't heard in years. Then she laughed, a soft, disbelieving kind of laugh. "You're kidding, right?" I shook my head. "No, I've thought about this for a long time. It's what's best for both of us." Her smile vanished. "You said you'd give me 2 months. It hasn't even been that." "It has. And I kept my word. I gave you time, and I've seen the effort. But I also know now that staying isn't right for me." Her face crumbled like shattered porcelain. "So that's it? After everything? I can't keep surviving a relationship that only breathes when it's suffocating one of us." She stood up so quickly that her chair screeched across the floor. "You liar," she yelled, her voice cracking. "You said we were reconnecting." "We were talking, Maya," I said, still calm. "That doesn't mean we're healing. I don't feel safe here anymore." And then, before I could finish that thought, she stepped forward and hit me. It wasn't a slap. It wasn't dramatic. It was a closed fist, hard and fast, right to the side of my face. My head jerked, my jaw throbbed, and I tasted blood inside my cheek. For a second, we both froze. Her eyes widened like she hadn't meant to do it, like her own hand had betrayed her. I didn't yell. I didn't even touch my face. I just walked to the bathroom, grabbed my phone and keys, and left. The ER was quiet that night, thankfully. They ran some tests, nothing broken, just a bruised jaw. The attending asked if I wanted to file a police report. I said no. I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was fatigue. Maybe it was pity. Maybe I just wanted it to end without courtrooms and paperwork. That night, I texted her from the hospital lobby. "I won't press charges, but do not contact me again. Not now. Not ever. This ends here. The next morning, I returned to the apartment with two friends. Maya wasn't there. Her stuff was still in the bedroom, but she was gone. I packed up everything that was mine, from the couch cushions to the coffee mugs, and left behind the life we had built. No, the life I had carried. I didn't cry. I didn't break down. I just moved. The final box I packed held things I hadn't touched in over a year. Old books, birthday cards she once gave me, a framed photo of us from our first vacation together. I stared at it for a long moment before placing it gently face down in the trash bin. That was the only goodbye I needed. When I closed the apartment door behind me for the last time, the hallway felt oddly still. No footsteps chasing after me. No apologies. No drama. Just a soft, firm click of a lock. Outside, the sky was wide and open, a soft blue with hints of gold. I stood there for a second, breathing in air that didn't feel heavy anymore. My jaw still ached, but my chest felt light, lighter than it had in years. I turned away from that door and walked toward something new. Not someone, not another relationship, just peace. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty for choosing myself.